When you talk about the best eras in NBA history, my personal favorite time periods in NBA history, the late 2000s, early 2010s have got to be up there on everyone's list. As during that era from really 06 to 2012, the level of basketball, the players competing for championships, was simply absurd. As you had someone like Dwyane Wade coming in fresh to the NBA, winning Finals MVP, LeBron at age 22 making the Finals, Tim Duncan getting his 4th championship, Kobe getting 2 titles, and of course Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen ending the drought of 20 plus years without a Celtics championship. That era of basketball was simply unmatched. And if you look at the best players in that time period, you had Dwyane Wade, LeBron James, Kobe, and Duncan. But mainly the 2 best players in the world, the big time debate, was Kobe versus LeBron. And specifically in 09 and 2010, it was a race to see which guy could make the finals and finally win the championship, hopefully beating the other guy in the process. And whoever came out on top in this battle will be declared the best player in the NBA. Now, unfortunately for LeBron James in that time period, he didn't win any championships compared to Kobe, who made the big dance 3 straight years, winning 2 championships back to back. And unfortunately for all us NBA fans, we never got to see LeBron James versus Kobe finals. Now, looking past that 2010 championship, Kobe's 5th title, the following year in 2011, of course, the Big Three Heat would form down in South Beach. And for the past decade, it's always been speculated, what was the driving force of the Heat coming together and assembling those 3 superstars? Many have said, oh, it's just 3 friends who wanted to play together and have fun. A little naive. Others have said the Big Three Heat forming was to beat the Celtics, definitely possible. And the last reason, most plausible reason, was the Big Three coming together to dethrone Kobe. And thanks to Dwyane Wade, finally, all these years later, we finally have an answer to that question, why the Big Three Heat formed. And the answer is pretty simple. Kobe being Bryant was the reason this team finally got together.
I remember cutting my TV off as soon as when Kobe ran and grabbed that ball. I was like, LeBron.
All right, LeBron.
That was our summer free agency. They were dominating. Like, Kobe was winning all these rings. I was like, wait, hold on. Now he got 5 and we got 1? Like, no. So, yeah.
So definitely some great insight from Dwyane Wade, and it is pretty fascinating. Only minutes after Game 7, these 2 guys were on the phone planning to team up in South Beach. And these 2 guys, LeBron and Wade, were both top 5 players. The fact they had to join forces to quote-unquote dethrone Kobe, finally get rings, that's a pretty big feather in Kobe's hat. And to me and many others who debated Kobe versus LeBron ad nauseum, it kind of proves Kobe from 08 to 2010 was indeed the best player in the world and the standard for even the top superstars like LeBron and D. Wade. And of course, winning those 2 championships the fashion he did it in, I don't know how any rational person can say Kobe wasn't the best player for at least 2 years in his career. And looking at the 08 to 2010 Lakers, the teams they beat, the gauntlet they ran in the West, I challenge you guys all these years later, find a player who won at least 1 championship in 3 years who beat as many great teams as Kobe did during this time period. I mean, look at this. You have 10 50-win teams from that stacked West and some great finals competition. And these aren't teams Kobe just happened to play. These are teams Kobe's Lakers actually beat and knocked off. And if you're someone like a Nick Wright, who thinks Kobe not once his career was the best player, again, that's on you. As even looking at the 08 Olympics, Kobe, for that team, that roster, was the savior of the Redeem Team, their best player, and their unquestioned leader. And winning the 09 championship versus Dwight's Magic, LeBron lost to, and then beating the Celtics in 2010, who LeBron and Wade lost to, how can you not say Kobe wasn't the best player in the world all 3 years? And one thing a lot of fans hate, a lot of media members hate, even some players hate, is when guys, quote-unquote, cheat the game. And look, LeBron going to the Heat, in a way, was cheating the game and cheating the rivalry that him and Kobe had. Because Dwyane Wade being a top 5 player, Chris Bosh being a top 15 player. For the 2010s era, the early 2010s, that was the equivalent of Kevin Durant going to Golden State. And look, Kobe's Lakers later on, when they tried to form a big three Chris Paul, the NBA vetoed that trade because it was quote-unquote unfair. And on his 2 title teams, his 3 finals teams, his only all-star teammate was Pau Gasol. And Pau pre-Kobe, he was viewed as a playoff choker and a playoff underperformer who was soft. Of course, he was a great player in a lot of fans' eyes, but Kobe Bryant made that guy an NBA champion. Compared to LeBron James, who unlike Kobe, went to D. Wade in South Beach, who already had a championship from '06. And look, I'm being kinda hard on LeBron James, but I will give him props for one thing. Unlike a lot of his fans, a lot of his media fanboys, this guy deep down does value championships. As going to the Heat, going back to Cleveland, and eventually to Los Angeles, those were all moves to win championships. And nowadays in 2023, where you have certain players saying championships, they don't matter, they don't care about that, and it's not important to their legacy, that's completely false and they know it. So for LeBron James, I give him props. He definitely values championships and understands their importance. And looking at that D. Wade LeBron James phone call, back then, of course, Kobe, he was the standard, and getting 5 championships, that was the bar for D. Wade and LeBron James. And historically speaking, from the modern era, I think Michael Jordan's 6 championships still is the bar. As even Kobe, past 2010, getting his 5th ring, was looking for number 6 that he unfortunately never got. That's why when it comes to the GOAT debate, championships mattering, championships not mattering, I think everyone deep down knows they 100% do. And Jordan's 6, Kobe's 5, for the modern day players, are the standard and are still the bar. And staying with the Big 3 Heat, specifically the 2011 Heat, their first year together, I always do find it fascinating. No one talks about this team in the playoffs and LeBron versus Wade, and was actually the best player in that finals run. And what I want to do, I want to look at Kobe and Shaq from '02 compared to Wade and LeBron in 2011. On your left, Kobe and Shaq. Of course, their stats are definitely highly impressive. And Shaq averaging 30 points to Kobe's 29, that gap in scoring, the gap in production, really isn't that wide. And looking at Wade and LeBron, just like Kobe and Shaq, the gap production really isn't that wide. Now, why I want to compare these 2 different years is because Kobe averaging 29, 7, and 6, winning the championship with those great numbers. That is downplayed and discredited, and gets slighted for playing in Shaq's shadow. Compared to LeBron James, who debatably wasn't better than Wade in 2011, and it never gets talked about. And if you compare '02 Kobe, what he did in that defensive era, putting up those numbers, facilitating, rebounding, and especially scoring, compared to some all-time great players in their prime winning championships, it's better than a lot of those guys at their peak. And to go full circle with this video, looking back at Dwyane Wade, on Shannon Sharp's podcast, he claimed the '09 MVP that went to LeBron James should have gone to him instead. Now look, '09 Dwyane Wade was a phenomenal player. I would say a top 3 player at worst in the NBA. But looking at the MVP, it is pretty funny Kobe actually finished second in this race ahead of Wade but behind LeBron James. And if you look at Kobe's overall numbers, for a Kobe season, they're not what you would expect from MVP candidate. And compared to '08 Kobe, when he won the MVP, these numbers took a step back in favor of winning more games and being more unselfish. As the '09 Lakers, many forget, won a staggering 65 games in a Western Conference that had 9 teams that won over 45 games. And of course, winning games is a vital part of being an MVP. And despite Wade putting up great numbers, averaging 30.7 assists, his Heat team unfortunately only won 43 games in a weaker Eastern Conference. And compared to LeBron James, who had very similar numbers, his Cavs in that year had the best record in the NBA, only losing 16 total games for this season. You can argue Wade in 09 was a better individual player for the regular season, but for MVP criteria, especially back then, only winning 43 games isn't going to cut it for an MVP. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.